Ladies and gentlemen, I'm on with Frank, aka Frank the Tank. He has his own podcast called Perspective Shift. He's a super knowledgeable person. I love picking his brain all the time. I've even
Uh-huh.
driven out of my way 6 hours just to see him, just to hang out with him and pick his brain. How you been,
Yeah,
brother? You good?
I've been well. I've been well. How about yourself?
Good. I'm good. I'm good,
All right,
man.
nice.
Just learning new things. Just going on with the podcast. The latest thing I'm studying now is holographic, just reality,
Okay,
which
all
a
right.
lot of signs seem to be pointing at. Um,
Yeah,
the 3D reality, the 3D world we're in. I've been, I don't know if I told you about that, the hemisync stuff I've been doing, the
okay,
gateway
yes,
experience. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that stuff is kind of gearing towards holographic or Joe Dispenza's work. Freaking even Elon Musk he even talks
yeah.
about the holographic. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah. So come back to the basic understanding of who are we, and we are the witnesser of this holographic world we're in. Just kind of like when you're sitting in a movie theater, you're watching a movie, you get pulled into it, but it's just a pixelated um, pixelation of modulations of light coming onto a screen, but it doesn't really have any tangible aspect to it. So it's really some bit of an illusion, but the reality is the experience which we're having. So we're already in it. So when we start to play around with these concepts of saying, understanding the holographic world we're in, we're actually witnessing it constantly. It's just another fractal way of understanding it. It's another way of breaking it down. But it's almost like who we really are is the witnessing and the consciousness of the experience we're having. When you come to understand that, that is the holographic world we're living in.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense in some perspective, but is it like, can we actually manipulate that world? Like when
We always
people
do law of
manifest things?
attraction. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the understanding of law of attraction, or what you put out is what you get back. It's about how do we control our emotion or frequency, which emotion is a frequency, to modulate or have the pixelation modulate the way we want them to. So there's a lot of different variables in order for us to have an exact setting. Maybe one day we'll get there. So we're playing off of other frequencies and other modulations in order to see the world. But yeah, we do have control. Sometimes we don't think we have control. That's why the philosophies or the understanding of determinism or free will. And at this level right now, it's determinism and free will. It's kind of idea how I look at it. But we do have control over it. But to what degree or what beliefs are blocking us from it, and that's the game, you know? It's
That's
like
the
when you're
game.
playing a video game, you have control of the video game, but how quickly can I get through this level to get to the next level, to get to the next level? Well, the better you are
Yeah.
playing it, the easier it is. So,
Or you can cheat and do some ayahuasca, and then boom.
yeah, but is that cheating? You know,
Yeah. I mean,
we
that's
don't
not
know if
really
it's
cheating,
cheating.
but
No, it's
nah,
just,
I
yeah,
wouldn't say
it's
it's
breaking
cheating.
the code. It's breaking
It
the
is.
code. But the thing too is like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is breaking the code, but I feel like I don't want to say it's cheating, but you can't constantly do that. You have to figure out a way to get there yourself.
Yeah, because like ayahuasca and something like that can show you what you didn't think was possible. But when you come down from ayahuasca, you have to figure out how to get back to that place. And a lot of the indigenous cultures that use some type of psychedelic medicine will
Hmm.
they'll set out on a journey, usually coming into what they call manhood around 13 to 15 years old. They'll do some type of ceremonial, um, from what I've read, I'm not fully versed in this, but they'll do some like ceremonial hallucinogenic to kind of give them a guide. And then for the rest of their life, their journey is to get there, hopefully without doing an ayahuasca or peyote or some other type of
Yeah, yeah.
hallucinogenic. That's one way of looking at it. There's other people say, well, just keep doing it. But like what you said earlier, I like to know how to get somewhere. So I might have to have somebody drive me or use a navigation system to get somewhere. But if I want to get back there, I don't want to have to keep using it because it becomes somewhat laborious and aggravating.
I think the
Because we,
best way you told me is when you're young, yeah, your mom is driving you
Mm-hmm.
to the movies. But when you're in
Yeah.
your 30s or 40s, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing when your mom's driving you to the movies. You should be getting there yourself.
Yeah, there's some people in that situation. So,
I mean, yeah, if your car breaks down, your mom needs to drive you somewhere. That's cool, bro. But constantly,
yeah, yeah.
you want to get there yourself.
Yeah, if you're 30 years old, you're probably best sleep your mom out and call your buddy,
Call your
call
buddy,
Uber.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, call
yeah.
Uber. But
Call Uber.
yes, yeah. So I don't look at anything as necessarily empirically right or wrong. It's just different ways. But what is this journey about? For me, it's about setting forth an idea or goal, if you will. But then the goal is not to get to quickly. Actually, the goal sets then the process in which I really want it. It's the process we really want. Because even the process of doing, say, ayahuasca, if you're going to go to Peru, say, fly out there, hook up with a shaman and a group of people, that's a process on its own before you even do the ayahuasca. Learning about it, setting your intentions, all these things are part of the process. That's part of the excitement, not just getting launched out into the universe and seeing how this universal physical world is just nothing but fractals or geometry and whatever, however you want to look at it, that is completely organized. We just move within it. And every time I set off a frequency vibration, I change the look of the frequency. And so the outside world will show me almost how I'm feeling and thinking. And if you don't like it, well, change the way you think or feel. And change the
Yeah,
way you
or
think, and
stop
then the
trying to,
feeling. Yeah, yeah. So,
or you can have maybe stop trying to have the outside world control the way you think and feel, and you can just think and feel a certain way, and then the outside world will change.
yeah,
What do you
so
think
it's
of that?
putting the horse in front of the cart rather than the cart in front of the horse. So, and that's a lot of times we get hooked up. So the outside world will let us know to some degree whether we're doing right or wrong based on what we want. So there is an understanding of or significance to the outside world. So I'm like, okay, if the outside world isn't replicating what I want to experience, there's some inward work I need to work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does
So
make sense.
it's an
That's why you're a
indication,
life
but
coach.
it's an indication, not a core. It's not the causation, but it's more of a correlation with the outside world. So, like
Perfect.
if you're in business and you want to know if you're doing good, well, what does your bank account look like? That's one indication, not the only one. But if you got in the business just for the money, it's going to be somewhat stale. It's going to be somewhat laborious at some point. But you do it for the process, whether it's customer service, which everything pretty much is. And then because the universe is essentially organized, we don't completely understand it, so I call it chaotic. And then you get the business and you try to organize the business best you can. You're going to start to see the bottom line to rise, and you're going to start seeing money. So that's letting you know you're moving in the right direction. But the goal necessarily should not be just for the money, but the money lets you know whether it's just working or not. That's how I
That's
look
funny
at it.
because that's actually a great way to look at it because I just started my own business.
Oh, right
Um,
on.
uh, yeah, it's part-time business. I'm doing so I'm in the insurance game, so I'm doing annuities and like long-term investments for people.
Oh,
I
nice.
really
All
just
right.
started, yeah, a couple of weeks ago. I got my license and everything. But
All right.
yeah, it's not just the money, dude. Like, I also want to really help people in
Yeah, and
general
that's
too.
the process. Yeah, because think about like when you invest money in something, say an annuity or any type of long-term investment, it's the process. It's not about getting there now. It's the process. So you tell somebody you invest in this, and based on the markets and the history of the market, you might get like, I'm just throwing numbers out there, like a 7% return historically, and put this amount of money in 30 years, you'll have this much money. So that's a process. And when you get into that, it's kind of exciting. So
It
when we
is.
get lost in the intricacy of process, we're actually in the moment. But when you're thinking about every possibility that can happen, trying to why am I at the finish line, so to speak, that's what creates anxiety. If I think about the future and how great it was, I mean the present, the past. If I start thinking about the past, how great it was, and compare it to now, that will somewhat bring me into a state of depression. But if I'm in the present moment, I can't have any of that. when I'm involved in what I'm doing. I don't care what it is, eating cereal or talking to you. I'm not thinking
So
about
now,
myself, therefore, yeah.
so I read a lot of books about like really successful CEOs and things like that, people that started their
Mm-hmm.
own multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're like, dude, I didn't know how I was gonna get there, but I had the end goal in mind. It was in my
Yeah.
mind's eye. Um, why do you think you should not really concentrate on how it's gonna happen, like the middle part, and concentrate more on the end goal? Or like how it's gonna make you feel? Because I feel like a lot of people just like overthink it and then they just like psych themselves out.
Well, yeah, they talk because you don't know. No one knows. You know, like I can name like 6 billionaires right now, and everyone got there differently. So there were attributes that they all had. One was not giving up and following their dream, so to speak. But every one of them had a different process. But there was an empirical process that they call follow, and that was they knew it could happen. But no one knew exactly how it was going to happen along the way, but they can see it. So, part of that process to start off with is imagine yourself already being that in which you want. And when you imagine that, it will generate a certain frequency. It'll make you feel good, obviously. And then that good feeling will then set you down a path where you run into situations and circumstances called synchronicity, and you'll recognize them and act on them, not question them. And when you do so, you could start seeing the process make sense. It is going to make sense. It's not going to be completely hocus pocus type stuff. But we don't know because we've never been there. It's like going to a movie, sitting down, and it comes up, and you're like, what's going on? Like, watch it. It'll present itself. You're not supposed to know now. You want to know now. You want to get to the end where you finally get to the place, the marker, if you will, to state that you're there. Well, when you get there, you're just going to set a new marker, push it out further. And
Sure.
that starts the process of running your business.
Okay. So it's the whole process itself, the excitement.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one complete kit. Like, don't take away, don't say, I just like the process. I don't care about the end result. I'm like, well, the end result is what allows the process for you to go to a new process. So it's not just about the journey. It is about the destination and the journey at the same time.
At the same time.
You can't really separate the two. Yeah.
Got it. See?
Yeah.
Well of knowledge. Anyone interesting you've had on your podcast lately?
Yeah, we just had Dr. Bradley Nelson on. And he wrote a book back in 2007 called The Emotional Code. And he recently wrote another book called The Body Code. So he gets into kinetic energy kinesiology, and he does muscle testing, and he has a formulation to release trapped emotions in people's bodies. And he's had great success with it. Actually, Tony Robbins wrote the foreword to his book. And then the second book, The Body Code, The Emotional Code, Tony Robbins wrote the foreword to that. And then The Body Code, I forgot the other guy's name who wrote the foreword. He's on Coast to Coast. George Norrie.
Oh,
George Norrie wrote I love that guy.
He's on freaking thing, Gaia.
He's on Gaia,
that guy's all over.
Yeah,
he has like 500 episodes, dude. He's like old school podcast.
He is.
Before there was a podcast, he was radio.
Exactly. Yeah, he's still on the radio.
Yeah.
Still has, Coast to Coast. So
Coast to Coast.
Yeah, so he came on and we had a great conversation, and he explained this modality, which pretty much is muscle testing. So, you pretty much go in and you what you're doing is you're connecting to the subconscious of another individual, and their subconscious will let you know what emotions are being trapped, and they'll let you know where they are. But once you identify that, and through muscle testing, you get to a point, then you can actually release them, and you use a magnet. Now, your hand is a magnet, so you can use your hand. You can also use a refrigerator magnet. There's no particular magnet you need to use. And then, according to him, and again, he's been doing this over 30 years, so he's done it. It's worked 100% of the time. So he doesn't know why, 100%? But he knows it. Well, what I'm about to say is when he does the magnet, he moves it in the opposite direction of his prime meridian, which moves from your tailbone up your back to the top of your lip. So when he takes the magnet, he swipes it in the opposite direction. So what I mean is not that like with the patients, I'm talking about when he does it. So he does 3 swipes if the emotion came within the lifetime of the individual, or if it came from an inherited one, he'll then swipe it 10 times. So he doesn't know why, but every time it comes from this lifetime, it's 3 times, and every time it comes from inherited, it's 10 times. That's what I'm talking about, 100% of the time. But
Okay.
yeah, because a lot of it has to do with, for one, the individual's belief structure in when we're doing this. But even then, this subconscious, you can connect to that and start to remove trapped emotions. And when you do that, the trapped emotions remove forever, never returns. Now, you could create other trapped emotions. We know that. But at least at that point, you have the ability to understand what's happening. So it was a really good conversation. Yeah. So he's helping people with, anything from chronic pains to cancer and even emotional struggles. Like,
does he talk about how to remove that trauma after you pinpoint it?
Well, yeah. Once he pinpoints it, he takes the magnet and runs it over the prime meridian 3 times in the opposite direction. If that trapped emotion was from the lifetime in which the person's in, or if it came from hereditary, such as their parents or ancestors, it's then just 10 swipes in the opposite direction. And it's anywhere. It could be on the forehead. Yeah. So if it's running this way, he comes this way 3 times. And it could be down the back. Anywhere on the prime meridian is when he swipes it in the opposite direction.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's not sure why, but it works, and that's the thing. He's whenever he asks the subconscious, 100% of the time, it's said to go in the opposite direction. That's kind of what I was referring to as 100% of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's funny that he's been doing this 30 years. He's figured out a way to make it work, but he doesn't know how it works.
Well, he knows how it works. He doesn't know why it works. It's kind of like we know how gravity works.
Yeah, but we don't know. Okay.
Yeah, like we know how gravity works, but we don't know why gravity exists. But does it really matter? To the patient, they don't really care.
Yeah, they don't really care, dude. I mean,
if you could,
if you have cancer, you don't give a shit. Does it work? Oh yeah, all right, let's do it.
Yeah,
boom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and he obviously, when it's safe to not guarantee that this is what it's going to do, because really, what's happening is when you remove trapped emotions, the body works more efficiently, and then the body heals itself. Kind of, it's kind of like Joe Dispenza when he goes and we do the meditations with him. He takes you. It's removing trapped emotions. It's another modality. Actually, Joe Dispenza wrote a little excerpt in his book as well. So
nice.
because all these guys are in the same field. It's just different modalities, different ways of looking at it. But yet the science, they're using the same exact science, the neurology and the electromagnetic field and understanding the body. They're all coming from that same science and not fighting it. It's just the modality is different. And he kind of created this modality with the chart. And it's a chart that you go by. And when you pinpoint the emotion, then you start the work.
Can you do this to yourself?
Yes. Yeah, you can.
Oh,
actually, the book, the Emotional Code, the book actually teaches you how to do it yourself.
That's awesome, brother. And you guys can catch this on Perspective Shift.
Yes, you can.
That's Frank's podcast. What else did I ask you? Dude, there's one thing I learned recently. Apparently, I thought for the longest time there's only 5 brainwaves, but apparently there's 7.
Oh, okay.
They discovered 2 more. So there's beta when you're, like right now we're alert, and then there's alpha when you're super focused. Yeah, there's theta when where you're right between dream state and your waking state. There's delta, and then there's gamma. Apparently, there's this other one called Lambda. LAM. Yeah.
Okay.
DA Lambda. So that's where you have suspended animation. Like these months that you go meditate in the mountains for weeks and months, in the snow.
I think I heard. Yeah, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza talked about that. I think it.
Probably because so that's suspended animation, and then there's the 7th one, which is super consciousness, and guess what it's called? Epsilon. That's what he named his company. Yeah.
Yeah, Epsilon. Yeah.
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 That's crazy. So apparently, like, there's like this whole new wave of science coming out with brainwaves. I was talking to a neurobiologist at the University of Utah, and I sent it to him. He's like, I didn't even know this could happen. I was like, dude, you study neuroscience. You're a college professor. And he's like, I
Yeah, but
didn't know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but it's always that way. Niels Bohr had a statement years ago, obviously years ago, because it was in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
early 1920s, early 1900s. He said, "Science expands one funeral at a time." And the meaning
Oh,
behind that
okay.
and how he put it was, it's like, yeah, when some scientist dies along with their idea, a new one could come along to develop expansion. So the universe is constantly expanding. So is the understanding of neuroscience. So who knows, to say there's 10 brain waves, how we calculate it. Or maybe there's only
Yeah.
7, but then there'll be another subset of 7, right? We've
Right. You
seen
mean
this
like
happen.
gamma, high gamma?
Yeah,
Yeah,
who
something
knows?
like
Like,
that.
because the more we expand to get to a higher level, the more we can see. The higher up in the mountain I get, the more of the valley I can see. So right now, my reality is I'm looking at this. This is my truth right now. But it's not the empirical truth in the whole universe, but it's my truth right now. And so as these scientists keep developing and studying, they're going to naturally find a greater place, and they ought to. It's part of the game. They don't want to get to the place where they're done. We discovered everything. Let's just
Nah, I don't believe
seal
that.
the envelope and be done with this.
Yeah,
And we
right.
know,
They need
like,
jobs.
they need jobs. That's what
They need jobs, bro.
it's.
They're
It's
gonna
all a
keep making shit up.
conspiracy. It's all a conspiracy. They're just making stuff up. Well, to some degree, we are making it up, because you think about what's expanding the universe, our imagination, and so imagination is that, but it's still in the confines. So how do you imagine something? There has to be something there for you to imagine,
I've
right?
gotten downloads before. I
Yeah,
somewhere I've gotten downloads literally where things have popped into my brain, and now I'm doing like meditations where I could get more of those,
yeah,
where it just came out of nowhere, like the
yeah.
answer.
And then what do you
Poof.
do with them? Like, what do you do with them? Like, what do you do with the downloads? Like they're
Usually I
obviously for
write them down,
something.
or I
Yeah,
test them for myself,
yeah.
or I
Usually,
try
like
to
when you,
sync them.
yeah, because like in order to get on with you today, because we're using a different
Browser.
uh, browser. I had to download or up my Chromium download here to get it to work. So the purpose of me downloading was to have it to be functional to some degree, so I can speak with you. I don't
Yeah.
just download
Think.
stuff for no reason. And I think
Yeah.
when you're
Well.
ready, you'll get downloads. Yeah, like the iPhone, it gets downloaded in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that does sound something. Well. Now I'm doing these gateway process meditations where,
Okay.
well, yeah, you kind of have to ask for the download or specifically. Um,
Okay.
and then you'll get the answer. I've been like doing this. You know how sometimes you meet someone and you
Yeah.
forget their name and you just can't
Yeah.
remember their name, dude. You know that happened to my barbershops at the barbershop. The manager, he's only given his name once for like a year. Like I was just trying to test this out, and then I did it, and then boom, his name just popped into my head, Marty,
Okay.
right then and there. And I couldn't think of his name because I went to the barbershop earlier that day and it was just hurting my head trying to think of it. And then
That's
boom.
why they should wear name tags.
Well, this guy
I'm
doesn't.
just
It's like a
joking.
$10 barbershop, dude.
Yeah, I'm just joking, man.
Yeah, but it works. That's funny, and I've never forgotten his name. Like even today when I went in, I'm like, hey, now I constantly use it, and I've applied it to other things.
Yeah,
But it's my
because
subconscious.
yeah, well, it's always everything that you've ever witnessed is in your subconscious. It's how do we retrieve it? So your subconscious, like say you're walking around with a GoPro, it's recording everything. You may not be focused on what it's recording, but it picks up everything. But we only know how to retrieve the things that are significant to us, like what stands out. But literally, if you were able to tap into your complete subconscious, you can count how many cars you pass by in one day, in 1 year. But it's not
Unless it's
significant for
with
me. Everything, just like a
yeah,
video camera sitting on the end of a corner. It's recording everything. So subconscious has got a lot of power in it, storage anyway. But yeah, how do we retrieve it? Well, for one, we have to have a reason to retrieve it, right? In what we call a reason. and we have a good reason to retrieve it, it becomes easier. That's why, like, a lot of times I'll talk about something, people are like, you got a good memory. I'm like, not really. Because every time my wife asks me to get something from the grocery store, I at least forget one thing. And it's because it doesn't really, like, it's not for me, it's for her. And it's not like I'm dissing her. It's just I don't think about that item. I'm not thinking about it. So I'll tend to forget it unless I become conscious and read the text message that she sent me so I don't forget. But a great story that I was involved in, I'll never forget it because I linked neural pathways to it and I know how to get to it, you know? So that's great findings on how to tap into stuff because maybe somewhere down the road, there'll be something significant about that day, but nothing stood out, but you need to retrieve that information, such as if you witnessed a murder or something, you know?
Yeah.
But you didn't know you witnessed it.
Or you get kidnapped by aliens, abducted, and apparently there's like special deep hypnosis that people do, and then they're able to recall that stuff. That's what happened to Bonnie and Betty.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Mike and Kayla, you know who they are, right? Kayla.
Yeah, of course I know who they are.
They're tonight.
They've opened on this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're doing something tonight where they're trying to line up with aliens, and I was speaking to Kayla about this. I'm like, well, just do me a favor and do not get abducted. I need you because if she gets abducted, I'm in trouble. My podcast will just go downhill.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's funny you mention that because I don't know, they're doing some system where they're trying to retrieve or contact or communicate with aliens tonight. It's supposed to be a prime night, I guess.
I saw that on what you would call it. It's called the fourth kind. No, the fifth kind, because you're actually making legit contact. Yeah, the fifth kind. Because I think the third kind is when you see it. The fourth kind is when you're abducted, and the fifth kind is when you're actually like literally like you reach out to them.
Okay.
And yeah, I've seen this on Amazon. There's a bunch of documentaries on it. It's interesting. It's still
there is a lot of stuff.
I don't even think they're aliens, dude. They might be like interdimensional beings or higher vibrational beings, and you're just calling them.
Yeah. Well, they're just energy sources, like more extraterrestrial, if you will. But I don't know too much. I've listened to stuff on it. I don't know. It fascinates me, but I don't. At this moment in time, I don't have really a calling towards it to like investigate it any deeper. But if I'm walking down the street and something happens, I'm like, hey, cool.
Yeah.
But
take a picture for me, dude, as evidence.
Yeah, I'll do a selfie.
Do a selfie. Like, hey.
I'll do a selfie with ET. Hey, buddy.
They'll wipe your mind, dude. But back to what Joe Dispenza says, and you said this earlier. Like you connect these neural pathways. He always says nerve cells that wire together, fire together. So can you actually create like future memories, or like something that hasn't even happened, but you constantly picture it happening, and you're putting in this world, and you kind of walk into it. It's like manifesting.
Yeah. Well, any producer, or I should say director, producer of a movie they do that. So they set forth how they want to look at it. They write the script or the screenplay. They get the cameras, everything, the setting, and by the end of like 4 months or a year, however long, and they edit it and stuff like that. They actually created. They witnessed their future in the moment in which they did it, and then it came into fruition in the physical world. So all movie makers do that. We all do it. A lot of times we don't realize the image we're having because our imagination is running what we call wild, like we're not in control of it. But when you control your imagination more and more, you create the situation, circumstance to come up, and then one day it shows up. May not be exactly, I guess you can get exactly, but it turns out like, man, this is what I asked for. So, but you set forth the feeling, the picture of what you want, and then generate a feeling as if the mind already thinks it has it. Mm-hmm. And then it sets a certain frequency. And if you follow that thread like a GPS, it seems to lead you to the circumstance situations. And then when you act on it, because acting is a component of this thing, when you do that, you start to see the fulfillment of it. So, yeah, but it doesn't, I guess it can happen as quick as you want it to, but I believe it's the process, of coming into fruition, seeing it being birthed, just like a child takes 9 months, 3 3 trimesters, and then it comes out, and there's the fulfillment. Maybe it's to get you ready for the child, because if your wife or your girlfriend told you you're pregnant, and then the next day the baby came out, shit, I didn't even get the room ready.
Well,
yeah.
gotcha.
So and that's playing in the field of linear perspective and time. So we can also
How do you
shorten that.
explain that with science? Like, I completely understand what you're saying, and I practice it all the time, and I've seen other people cure cancer doing that same thing that you just described. But as far as like science goes, I know quantum mechanics is starting to scratch at the surface, but how does like science explain this?
Well, they have to collect data. So, scientists, that's what they do. And science, you have to be realistic in science, and that's the way it should be. Because unless I have an experience to some degree, I don't want to sit, like, scientists can theorize, right? That's how they do it. But they're not in the game of belief. It either is or it isn't. And if it isn't, and they want it to be, they go down that road to try to prove that it is, right? And then once they prove it, so that's a scientific way of doing things. So a lot of times people have beliefs in something. Well, what is a belief? Like if I told you, hey, Frank, you're going to be on the podcast today, I'm like, I believe I will. It's kind of wish-washy, isn't it? I either know I am or I say I'm not. So science has that black and white, and it ought to have that black and white. Leave up the beliefs and everything else for the philosophers. And, you put a theoretical physicist with an actual scientist, you get something, So science, like someone like a Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing these meditations, right? And he's getting results from it. He personally got a result. He healed his spine. He's seeing other people get results. So what's the part of this that's getting results? Well, then he calls his team in. I think they're out of San Diego University. He calls them in. These are biologists. They're actual scientists. And they go through the rigmarole of their science. And then they're trying to figure out what part of this is doing it. And that's the way it should be. Because when we do that, then we could get everyone on board. And then you can start changing the way we heal ourselves. But just buying into something doesn't help. Because there's so many variables in these modalities. And part of it is how much you believe in it. Now, if a scientist starts to prove it, it's easier for people to believe in it because then they see it. So if, and that's kind of the system. And I love the way the system's built, because, I like to look forward and see what's possible, but I also realize where I'm at, which is part of the process as well. Yeah. I'm not trying to be delusional, right. Nor should, you can be delusional, but most delusional people I run into don't seem to get anywhere,
Yeah, those delusional people, yeah. Well, they're not grounded. But here's the problem I have. And I talked to my neurobiologist friend about this. Modern science has to do with the scientific method, which works great for materialistic things. Like you want to build a rocket, send it out. You shoot it up. Yeah, A, B, C, and D. You can do it. But when it comes to the human body and the human mind, man, it starts getting complicated. Like you said, there's a lot of variables because it's the consciousness, and there's 8 billion different ones.
Yeah. Well, there's one way to look at it. There's only one consciousness. There's just 8 billion different perspectives of that. Yeah. So, and that's how we're looking at it now. So I'm not saying that's empirical either, because, I've read about it, and my experience leads me to that. Okay. There's one conscious mind, if you will, but there's 8 billion perspectives of that. And whose perspective is correct? Well, that's ridiculous. But what I noticed is when more people are swaying towards a certain perspective, such as moving from medicine, which focuses on the problem,
cause and effect, or cause and effect.
Well, not cause and effect. They're focused on the symptom rather than the whole homeostasis of the body. And you got a headache, take an aspirin. That works. But the new system of medicine, which science has evolved in, is what's creating the headache. Well, aspirin will cure it, so who cares? Well, we have to get beyond that, because yes, take the aspirin, the headache goes away, but why does the headache keep coming? And they're just scratching the surface on those things. Like what produces cancer? Well, people like stress. Okay, that's a very blanketed statement, stress. What part of stress, or what about stress, the way I think, the way I do it, there's so many variables. Is it outward stress? Is it inward stress? So as we get it, neuroscience gets into this, they're going to narrow it down to one day minimize cancer, mitigate cancer perhaps. I would never say they would get rid of cancer, but maybe they will. I don't know.
Yeah,
But certainly
actually, a couple of
maybe.
years ago,
What's up?
they got artificial intelligence, and they said just scan everything on the web and find out why people have cancer. And apparently, it was inflammation in the body.
Yes, but
And
what's
one
causing the
way
inflammation?
yeah, I don't know, like
Well,
maybe
that's it.
I'm
So
guessing. Yeah,
we know there's inflammation in the body. What causes it?
I
And
don't
like,
know, but
yeah,
one of the solutions to minimize it, I'm not saying get rid of cancer, is what I just did before we jumped on the podcast: ice baths, man. Just cooling yourself down.
yeah, it's a physical way to get rid of the inflammation. We know that works, but
Dude, it
there's
works
also ways.
wonders.
Yeah, also meditation gets rid of inflammation.
Yeah,
Certain ways.
big time.
Yeah,
But I do both of them together, so, and I just try to
yeah.
not have
Well,
stress in
hey,
my life.
hey, okay. When you're sick, you throw everything at it, right? And there's
Or I'm
something
not even
nice that.
sick. I'm
Yeah,
throwing
but
at it now.
even now, like, obviously people have been jumping in cold water for millennia, and even now the scientists, even to this day, like I'm sure someone found something out today about ice baths or cold water that we didn't know about a week ago. So they're as a pinpoint, because more and more people are starting to do ice baths because of the effect of it, especially if you're athletic and stuff. You obviously the ability to heal the body quicker. What athlete doesn't want that, right? So the quicker I can heal the body, the more fun I can have out on the field, so to speak.
Or more, more effective. Yeah. Actually, so since I bought a house like 2 weeks ago, I got
Mm-hmm.
the ice freezer. I sealed
Okay.
it up. Now it has like ice in there, and I'm just doing ice baths twice a day, 3 minutes
Twice a
each.
day,
Do my
really?
body. Yeah, twice a day, every single day. Right when I wake up, I just go in there, and every
Mm-hmm.
single time I try to psych myself out. I'm like, no, don't do it today. It's okay. But now I'm like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And anyways, but my metabolism's a lot faster, less pain. It's kind of amazing just seeing my body
Yeah.
change in that week and a half of doing it. But you have to consistently do it.
Well, you do, because what another component of that, like you just said it, it's like you're making your will is overcoming your body, because your body doesn't want to do it. Your body loves 98 degrees. Your body loves it. But then when you're jumping into ice cold water somewhere, 40, 30 degrees, 30 something degrees, your body knows it's not going to be comfortable. But when you go in there and the mind says we're doing it, you go and you just simply set in and drop to your neck or even plunge under. You push yourself past a belief, and that's all it is. It's a belief. And when you break that belief, you create new neural pathways in the brain. And when you do that, you feel alive. This is why we were alive when we were children, because that's all we had were new neural pathways. We didn't have reciprocating, we didn't try to climb the same tree for the same effect. But I could have climbed the same tree all day long, but my effect was I wasn't like, oh, yesterday I felt good, so let me climb the tree again to feel good. We didn't think that way as children. And I believe we're trying to get back to that childlike state as adults. And the way to do that is refrain from thinking about your past or comparing your past to what's happening now. And you can fall into that. And one way is to take a damn cold shower.
Yeah, take a cold shower, cold bath, dude.
Yeah, because I just do it. Yeah.
You know what the worst part about it is? The process itself, me being in there, is not as bad as me thinking about it before I get in. Like those thoughts that you have, oh my God, you're gonna freeze this, that, like every single time, and I do it twice a day.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for years. Process, like I don't know if it's my own mind being tactical and trying to make me stop it. But when I'm in there, it's not. Yeah, it's my subconscious. It's not that bad, dude. It's not bad at all. Like nothing's ever happened to me. I've been in there up to 15 minutes, up to my neck. I always go up to my neck, and I'm completely fine. But that minute or two or that 5 minutes before I get in there, it's like, dude.
Yeah, because you're thinking. You're thinking like, do I like right now? I'm comfortable. It's I'm dry. And once you start thinking, your subconscious always and forever protects you. It always wants to make your life comfortable. But when we learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, that's when we have a breakthrough. And obviously, you going in twice a day, you've already achieved that to some level. Because if it was a year ago, the mind, the argument in the mind, the subconscious would have won that battle hands down. But right now, if you're going in twice a day, your subconscious is like, why am I even arguing? This dude's just going to do it anyway,
Yeah.
So it's why we do those things. So people are like, is it the cold water? I'm like, well, no. Or yes, there's a correlation with the cold water. But it's telling the mind we're doing it whether you like it or not is part and parcel of what's happening. So you can take something else that's uncomfortable, like, like if, yeah.
It is uncomfortable, man. Walking up to girls. I did it today in IKEA.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
And so if you overcome that, you create new neural pathways. You feel good about it, even if you turn down in the time of doing it. So again, that's uncomfortable state you put yourself in, and if you measure the neural pathways in the body, you get very similar results because you're going into the uncomfortable, into the unknown. Because if you asked that girl and she would say yes, that the excitement kind of diminishes.
It wouldn't be. Yeah, I wouldn't even do it. Do it. But here's the thing. Can you actually mimic that feeling? I already know the answer, but I want your thoughts. Can you mimic the feeling of going in that ice bath and feeling that cold and all the benefits of it without actually having to go in the cold?
Absolutely. Yeah. The cold is just a permission slip. Everything is a permission slip. And I'm not saying permission slips aren't needed but like a placebo, but placebo means to positiving up. It doesn't mean fake. It doesn't mean phony. It just means to positive up. But if I didn't have, like, in other words, can I mimic in my mind and my imagination feeling cold? Yes, I've done it before. I've smelt an orange in my imagination before, but I had to have, and so I can do that. It's just so much easier to jump in a cold shower, than to spend 3 hours trying to get to that state of, samadhi where I have that cold experience.
Right, but it's also easier to just pop a Xanax and chill out versus meditate for an hour. But I would rather meditate for an hour.
Yeah, well, it is easy, but where does Xanax get you when it wears off?
Yeah, it's gonna get you right back where you came from, or worse, probably. Back to
exactly.
Anxiety and,
so, we have to ask the question: why is it we're doing what we're doing? All right. So I take cold showers. I do all that stuff because of the experience of it. Nothing else. I don't do it to try to get healthy. But health comes from it. Because if you start to do things without without waiting for the payoff, it's a better experience. Think about like when you were a kid, all the things you did. You built the fort, you dug ditches. No one paid you to do that. You weren't waiting to get paid to do it. You just did it.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So when you do things and not wait for the payout, that is the payout. And I'm not saying you ought not to collect money for doing what you're doing, but if you start with the process and enjoying the process, you're actually going to get paid a lot of money. But that's not why I'm doing it. So if I do cold showers only to get healthy, and all of a sudden, 3 weeks of doing them, I got sniffles. I'm like, what the hell's wrong? I've been doing this thing. It's not working. I'm like, well, it was thinking you had to do it, which is creating more stress in your body. Now you have another chore to do. So I get this frequent question about meditation. Do I need to meditate? And I'm like, no, you don't need to meditate. Because if you make meditation another chore, you're just creating another stressful environment in your life.
So that's happened.
Why don't you? Why? Yeah. So explain that. Like, talk about that.
Because I meditate about 2 hours a day. Today I've done a little bit over an hour and a half already.
Right.
And 1 hour comfortably I can do, but here's the thing: 2 hours out of the day, every single day, that's a big chunk of your day.
Yeah.
At least I thought it was. Now it's like it just flows. But after a while, the afternoon or night meditations became a chore. I
Yeah.
mean, I would still get results out of it, and sometimes it was just phenomenal and it was like euphoric, but it became a chore before I sat down. And
Yeah.
then I was listening to some podcast. Actually, Dr. Joe Dispenza said, he's like, just add intention to it. Why am I meditating? Right before
Yeah.
you jump in. What do I want out of this meditation? What is
Yeah.
the purpose of this? And then
Yeah.
at that point, it just didn't become a chore anymore. So just write
Yeah.
down a sentence or two, or just for a minute, reflect on why you're doing this. And sometimes I'm like, dude, I have no reason to do it. I don't even do it, and I don't feel guilty for not doing it. But most of the time, I
Well,
do
yeah.
it because I'm like, I just want to better myself.
Yeah. But yeah, and then the idea of bettering yourself, I don't. It's kind of subjective too. We all naturally want to expand, so we become greater. But greater does not necessarily mean better. It's just different. Yeah. So when your intention is to have a great experience. What am I going to get from it? You get if you're trying to get something out of meditation, you're in your meditation looking for that thing and you missed it. Kids don't look for a friend at the playground. They just find one. But
How's that?
if they went to the playground to look for a friend, they'd be very needy, and the other kids would pick up on it, and they're like, "I'm out of here." Anyone that's searching,
That's actually
yeah,
that's actually happened. So the times I've actually
yeah,
jumped into the meditation accidentally and just told myself, I'm just gonna have fun. Just
yeah, it's the
enjoy the
best
ride.
meditation.
I've had the most profound meditations and like experiences. Like I've been crying full of joy, and
Yeah,
it's just like amazing. But like the times I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go to a different dimension or something like that. Missed it completely. If anything, I was
yeah.
struggling.
Or one could say you're always shifting into different dimensions anyway, so you're already doing it. To what degree of dimension you're going to switch into, that's a different thing. But
Okay.
we're constantly shifting in and out. We're always oscillating into different dimensions. It's just subtle to where we don't notice it, you know. But yeah, and these are great. Like we're at the basis of talking about this. So right now, it's like I know very little about this stuff, but that's what excites me. And I'm thankful that there are great physicists out there, great scientists out there that are really diligent on diving into this work and then taking it back to the people like me and simplifying it so I can understand it and then see how to utilize it in my life to expand my experiences and keep me excited. Like most days, I do feel like a little kid. Some days I act like a little
That's
kid
how I feel
too,
like.
but yeah.
I
And then there are days I feel like a grumpy old man as well. So
but I feel like so when I bought the house, people are
yeah,
like, "Oh, you're growing up. You're
you're
adult now." I was like,
growing
"Not
up because
really."
you bought a
I'm
house.
like, "Not
Join
really."
the
I'm like, "I'm
club.
just a big kid." I'm like, "No, fuck your club."
It's a
Like pain and suffering, bad pain, stress. I'm like, "No, I'm good." They're like, "Well, what do you mean?"
no,
I was like, "Well, I'm like, I just never gave up on my dreams." I'm like, "This
yeah,
house is just I might be a little more responsible, and now I have a little more responsibility, but like I haven't given up on my dreams."
yeah, but
But like
yeah,
I'm not growing up.
no, but responsibility and grow and childlike aren't opposing each other. Responsibility just means ability to respond. So when I was a kid at the playground and my friends were playing, I had the ability to respond to their play. So that's responsibility. So that's it. It's not like this dread thing that people are like, oh, I got so much responsibility. I'm like, why do you like? It's the ability to respond. That's a good thing to have. Like I love the ability to respond. It means no matter what setting I go into, I'll be able to respond rather than just completely react. So
Yeah.
it's how we look at these words and definitions of life that change things. And guess what? If somebody wants to look at it as dredge, they're right. If I look at it as a glorious thing, I'm right. It's just that which do you prefer to look at it? You know,
Just
and that's where your truth comes in. One isn't right over the other. It's just one seems to work better. you know,
yeah.
one
But
seems
this
to deliver
yeah.
better, results.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
Wherever works for you, I guess. For me, it's hey, dude, I'm still a kid. I'm still immature.
yeah,
Like a
yeah,
kid.
exactly. And
Um, but just having fun, like I don't have to fit that profile of now I have to be serious. And ladies and gentlemen, you call me Mr. Get Up. Or like
Mister.
none of that.
No.
Mr. Yeah, I have a house, like I have parties. You're welcome to come. I'm gonna bring you out here.
There you go.
We're gonna jump in that ice bath. I'm gonna show you what a Utah bath is compared to
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a little more chill.
32-degree
Yeah,
water is 32-degree water in the way you are. When I get out, it's probably a
yeah,
little warmer here, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just a part of life. Um,
Yeah.
what else would you say as far as meditation goes? So most people, I always preach meditation. Where can meditation take people?
Well, it shows you one thing. It shows you how to quickly change your change your emotions that aren't wanted. So all of our emotions are needed. They're signposts, kind of like the technology you have on your car right now. So if I was driving down the freeway and I got somewhat distracted and I was veering into the right lane, thank God my car beeps. It lets me know I'm going to hit another car. So the more I meditate, what I've noticed is my heightened sense of my awareness around me is easier because I have the ability to go from, like, I could raise my brain waves up to a high beta and then lower them down to like a theta state almost at will. So okay, if I can do that and I find myself in a situation where in the past I would get hot-headed and I could feel my temperature rising, so to speak, I could just lower the thermometer because I remember the feeling of that. And meditation, like we know, means becoming familiar with. So if I become familiar with this kind of calm, visceral state, and something happens and I start getting out of that, I know how to get back there without having to go back to the couch with the eyes closed and the mask on and music. I can do that while my eyes are open because I come so familiar with that state. And it's like that warm summer breeze feeling I have when I have meditations. They're all different. I don't look for anything other than the sensation. So when I close my eyes, I'm just focused on sensation. Sometimes I close my eyes and I listen to the clock. I try to listen to the sound of a car and there's no road near my house, so I have to really listen. Stuff like that. That's a meditation. Obviously doing Dr. Joe Dispenza. Some of his meditations are like CrossFit workouts, with the breathing. I love those as well.
I did
They
that
really
today.
are, right?
Yeah.
They really are,
Yeah,
man.
they are, man. They are.
Yeah.
It's like my head started spinning a little bit, and like I was like
Yeah.
shaking a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't scream. No
It,
screaming.
yeah. We've talked about that before.
I
That
don't know
was
what's up with that.
interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's some demon inside that releasing it,
Or
But
maybe
because
it's like,
if obviously whoever's going to listen to this, what we're talking about, we're at the Joe Dispenza meditation, and I would say like at least every meditation there was at least 2 or 3 people at least that was screaming like they were in a horror movie, like these long drawn out screams. And I remember telling you one day, I think it was like the 5th day, I was laying down and the woman right next to me started screaming. Now, the only thing that was good about it is it was the 5th day in, so I was already used to going deep quick, but it startled me and I'm like, oh, well. And then all of a sudden I didn't hear her anymore. I knew she was still screaming, but I didn't let it interfere with my experience.
yeah.
And when she woke up, I'm like, what was that? And she was like, I have no idea. Because I'm like, she was screaming.
Yeah, that actually happened to me too. The guy next to me started screaming. At first, I was like, I heard it a little bit, but he just started meditating. But he just kept screaming, and I was like, I was told not to look, but I'm like, dude, I'm just here for the whole meditation, just experience. I've never been to one of these retreats before, so I actually opened my eyes. I started looking at him, and he was full on, just on the floor, like having a
convulsing.
seizure.
Yeah,
full on. And you know what it was? I kind of like stepped away from everyone, and I was like by myself on the wall, and he came like maybe like 5 feet away from me. So it was just me and him. And I totally heard this. And afterwards, I was like, "Hey, dude, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, man. Did you hear that guy screaming out there?" I was like, "Bro, that was you." He's like, "Really?"
I
I was
didn't
like, "There's
realize
no
it
one
was
around
him.
us." I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "There's no one around us. It was you." He's like, "Oh man." He's like, "I'm sorry." He's like, "Can I hug you?" I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I just have this love inside me." I was like, "Yeah, come here." It was like kind of weird at
Oh,
first,
so he
but
let go of something deep. So he had like
yeah,
almost like an out of body experience. He didn't realize it was him screaming.
I
Maybe
guess.
I was screaming. The girl next to me wasn't. Who knows?
I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
maybe.
Yeah, I
Yeah, you don't
haven't.
seem like a screamer. You're more like a jabber, you know,
Jabba, yeah,
with
yeah,
the boxing
Jabba.
experience.
Yeah,
But I always encourage people to meditate, and you know what really bothers me? Like, I can't. I'm like, I'm like, first of all, the fact that you're telling yourself you can't, just probably is true because you can't because you're telling yourself. But if you can,
yeah,
at least you just start telling yourself you can. You can.
yeah. A lot of times when people like I talk about because I'll ask a lot of people, "Do you meditate?" I'm like, "I know I should." I'm like, "Well, don't start out with the conversation. I know I should." I'm like, a lot of times people misunderstand the whole premise of meditation, and the reason I know this because that was my experience about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I started down this road, and I remember trying to meditate in like a lotus position with my back completely erect, and it was painful, dude. I wasn't going anywhere. I just noticed that like I probably need to go to a chiropractor. And I tried different forms, and I remember one day picking up this book at the bookstore, and I didn't even buy it. I just picked it up and talk about meditation. And when I opened it up, the first chapter of the first paragraph, the first chapter said, "There is no right or wrong way to meditate," and something clicked in me. So then I started putting my body in a more comfortable position. Yeah, I was erect, but I was now sitting on the couch rather than trying to suspend. And all of a sudden, I was getting these great experiences of just feeling sensations, my physical body becoming lighter. And then from there, the process started. And I tried to do different ones, different types of meditations, but they're not necessary. Just like it's not necessary for a kid to play in the playground. But oh my God, it's a great experience. So a lot of times when I'm confronted with people like that, I just have them like, just give me, just close your eyes. And then don't change your breathing. But when you're breathing in, notice you're breathing in, just silently say the word in. Then when you breathe out, silently say the word out. And I have them do that a couple of times, and I have them open your eyes. How do you feel? Like, I actually feel good. That's why we do it. You literally had nothing to do with me. But they're like, you just meditated. But there's no right or wrong way to do it. That is one form, one way of doing it. I tell people if you get lost in your garden, planting stuff, that's a form of meditation because you're focused.
Breath work.
Yeah. There's so many
And if
ways.
you can't stay focused, go into the ice bath. Trust me, that'll get you.
That will bring you right to the present moment.
You're not thinking of your mortgage. You're not thinking of your ex-girlfriend. Trust me, dude. You're in the moment.
Yeah, you are. You're thinking, how do I survive this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Try to think about something negative in an ice bath. Good luck.
I accept your challenge.
Try that.
I'll see what it does. Yeah, I'll try it. I'll see what happens. But usually it's more like I'm safe, I'm calm, I'm in the present moment. And then you just breathe a little bit. And then next thing you know, dude, 3-5 minutes is up.
Isn't it wild though? You can feel your skin temperature at first get really cold, but yet you don't shiver. And you can actually, it's wild. It's almost like it's not your body that's getting cold after a while. You can feel it. You feel the sensation of it, but it doesn't seem to affect your nervous system because you're no longer shaking.
That's very true.
I notice it too when I get into bodies of water, like I went to Sedona like a week and a half ago, and I jumped in Oak Creek Canyon. That water, it's pretty cold. And when you jump in that, when you jump in moving water, or if you're in still water and move around, the heat barrier escapes you, so you're always cold. So like when I go into an ice bath, eventually, you ever notice this? There's like a heat barrier around you, and when you slightly move, it goes away, and it's like, damn, it's kind of wild. But
field, bro.
Yeah,
your electromagnetic field,
yeah. But when you're actually in a river, the heat conduction keeps pulling the heat away from you, so you're not in a barrier of heat, so it remains a little cold. That's why when Wim Hof goes into a lake, he moves around a little bit more and he gets colder. It doesn't get time for the body to heat up around you. So it's a different experience. It's a cool feeling though. But I've gone into ice baths where all of a sudden it was freezing, and all of a sudden you can feel like this layer of heat around you and between you and the ice, and it's like a weird feeling,
Yeah,
and
I
then it
know
just goes
exactly what
away.
you're talking
Then
about.
it disappears. And it's like you get called again.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's why cold baths are way easier than cold showers because you don't have that barrier around you.
The cold shower, yeah, because the barriers keep constantly getting knocked off.
Yeah, because it's hitting different parts of your body. But
Yeah, it's a
I know
bit
what you
annoying.
mean. It is a weird feeling until it's
Yeah,
not, because now I know that feeling's gonna be there when I get in there, and it
yeah,
feels great.
yeah. I can't remember the last time I took a hot shower, and I don't do it. I think I'm scared to take a hot shower because I'll get lazy.
Really?
Yeah, I would say cold showers. And, obviously living in Arizona, how cold does it really get? This winter it got pretty cold, but yeah, just even in the summer, it's not hot. I mean, it's not cold, but I don't take a hot shower just because it does. It just
Good.
makes you feel good. It's like a
Yeah, I know.
baptismal. It just cleanses me.
And if you're gonna have coffee in the morning, ladies and gentlemen, just take that cold shower. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't do coffee. I'll drink it
Good.
once in a while. I get too jittery from coffee.
Good. Cool. And that's where we should end it.
Yeah. All right, man.
Yeah, check out his podcast. I listen to it all the time. It's called
All right.
Perspective Shift. It's him and another gentleman named Mike. And
Yeah.
you're also doing coaching, right? Like life coaching
Yep.
and also meditation coaching.
Yeah.
I'll
So
drop your info in there.
Yeah, it's fdailycoaching.com. And yeah, the first 30-minute session is consultation's free. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, definitely, man. I highly recommend people come and talk to you, or they could even just find you online. They don't have to go anywhere.
No. Yeah.
You've always been a great a source of knowledge that I've always tapped into. You have, dude. You have, because every time I try to touch a complicated subject and you just like super simplify it, I'm like, I don't know, man. This is a little too simple, but it makes sense. That's the part, because I try to complicate it and then you just always simplify it, and I'm like, dude, this actually makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but yeah,
so I highly recommend.
Yeah, try to simplify everything in life. It's better.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah, Einstein said it. He's like, the simplest answer is more often correct.
Yeah, that's why E = MC squared was a short equation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Frank, thanks for jumping on my podcast. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, go and subscribe to this, and we'll definitely catch you next time.